We're told that success looks like a bigger house and a faster car. But for most people, that success is actually a golden cage. Imagine it's 10 years from today. You're still driving that 2024 sedan, but you're also retired. While everyone else was upgrading their toys, you were buying your freedom. Let's break down the no-upgrade roadmap to 10-year wealth. My name is Ely, and I spend way too much time thinking about how people in the United States experience money psychologically. If you're someone who earns a normal income, maybe even more than you used to, but still doesn't feel financially secure, hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Because what we're about to get into isn't budgeting advice. It's not a savings hack. It's something closer to a psychological audit of how most Americans quietly sabotage their own financial lives the moment things start going well. And that part, the moment things start going well, is exactly where this whole thing falls apart for most people. Here's the thing. There's a pattern that plays out in households all across the country, and it's so normalized that most people never even see it happening to them. Someone earns $50,000 a year. They're doing okay. Not great, but okay. Then they get a raise to $65,000. Then maybe $75,000. And somewhere around that point, you'd expect them to start feeling more secure, right? More breathing room. Less stress. That's how math is supposed to work. More money and means more stability out. But that's not what happens. According to the American Psychological Association's annual Stress in America survey, money consistently ranks as the #1 source of stress for U.S. adults. And that stress doesn't just disappear as income goes up. For a significant portion of Americans who earn what most people would consider a decent wage, the financial anxiety doesn't shrink. It just changes shape. So what's actually going on? The answer, almost every time, is lifestyle inflation. And not the dramatic kind. Not the person who buys a boat the week after a promotion. The slow, invisible kind. The kind that just feels like living normally. It feels like keeping up. It feels like finally enjoying the money you worked hard to earn. And that framing, that completely reasonable sounding framing, is exactly what makes it so destructive. Let's make this concrete. Say someone is making $60,000 a year. That's roughly $5,000 a month before taxes, closer to $3,900 after federal and state taxes in a typical state. They have a car payment, maybe $450 a month, which is actually below the national average. The Federal Reserve's 2023 consumer credit data puts the average new car payment above $700. But let's say $450. They have rent. The median rent in the U.S. crossed $1,500 nationwide. And in cities like Austin, Denver, or Charlotte, you're often looking at $700 to $2,100 for a one-bedroom. Let's say $1,600. Health insurance premiums for someone without employer coverage can run $400 to $500 a month. Groceries for a single person average around $350 to $400 a month according to USDA data. Add utilities, phone, internet, subscriptions, the occasional medical copay, and that $3,900 take-home is gone before you've bought a single luxury item. Now that same person gets a raise. They're making $80,000. Take-home is now closer to $5,200 a month. That extra $1,300 feels enormous. And here's where the psychology takes over completely. The brain doesn't experience $1,300 in isolation. It experiences it in context. And the context for most Americans in their late 20s and 30s is a social environment screaming at them from every angle that they are behind. Coworkers just bought houses. A college friend posted pictures of a kitchen renovation. Instagram and TikTok are running a 24-hour highlight reel of people who look exactly like you, living in spaces that look a lot better than yours. The car in the parking lot next to you is newer. And suddenly that $1,300 doesn't feel like freedom money. It feels like catching up money. This is where it gets interesting, because this isn't a discipline problem. This is a threat response. Researchers who study social comparison, and there's substantial academic literature on this, including work cited in Robert Sapolsky's research on stress and status, have found that humans are extraordinarily sensitive to relative position. Not absolute wealth, relative wealth. Where do you stand compared to the people around you? That question is processed by the same part of the brain that processes physical danger. So keeping up with the people around you doesn't just feel nice. On some level, it feels necessary. Now you might be thinking, Okay, but that's just human nature. What are you supposed to do? Ignore what everyone else is doing? Not exactly. But understanding that the pressure is wired in is the first step, because once you see it clearly, you can make a deliberate choice about whether to obey it. And most people never get that far. They just respond. So what does responding look like in practice? It looks like this. The raise comes in. Within 90 days, the car gets upgraded. The apartment gets upgraded. A few new subscriptions get added. Dining out happens a little more often because the stress of watching every dollar has eased up slightly. Nothing dramatic. Everything feels justified. And by month 6, the new $5,200 take-home feels just as tight as the old $3,900 did. The number changed. The feeling didn't. Economists call this the hedonic treadmill. The idea is that humans adapt extremely quickly to positive changes in circumstances. A raise, a bigger apartment, a nicer car. These things produce a genuine boost in mood and satisfaction, but that boost tends to dissolve within weeks or months. And then the new level becomes the new normal, and the pressure to go further kicks back in. The treadmill keeps moving. You keep walking, and you never actually arrive anywhere. Here's what most people don't realize. This isn't just an emotional problem. It's a compounding math problem. And the math works in two directions simultaneously. Direction 1. Every dollar you add to your lifestyle costs you $1 every month going forward. That's the obvious part. But direction 2 is the one that really stings. Every dollar you redirect toward wealth-building compounds in your favor. The Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances has consistently shown that the wealth gap in the U.S. is not primarily explained by income differences. It's explained by savings rate differences. Two people can earn identical incomes over a decade and end up with wildly different net worths based on one variable: what percentage of each paycheck they actually kept. Let's run the numbers, because this is where the picture becomes very clear. Suppose two people both earn $75,000 a year. Person A gets a raise every few years, and every time their income goes up, their lifestyle expands to match. By year 10, they're earning $95,000 and living on about $92,000 of it. Their net worth, factoring in a 401k with modest contributions, might be around $40,000 to $60,000. And given that the average American in their 40s has about $50,000 in retirement savings according to Vanguard's How America Saves report, Person A is basically average. Person B gets the same raises. But Person B makes a deliberate decision early on: no lifestyle upgrades unless the math forces it. Same apartment, same car, same general cost of living, adjusted only for actual inflation on necessities. By year 10, they're also earning $95,000, but their expenses are still structured around a $60,000 lifestyle. The difference, roughly $35,000 a year over a decade, invested at a modest 7% annual return, grows to somewhere in the range of $480,000 to $510,000. That's not a small difference. That's the difference between financial anxiety at 45 and genuine options at 45. Now look, this is the point where the instinct is to say sure, but that's not realistic. Costs go up, life changes, you can't just freeze your lifestyle forever. And that's fair. Nobody is saying to live in 2024 conditions forever regardless of what happens around you. The point isn't deprivation. The point is intentionality. The point is making a conscious decision about what you upgrade and why, rather than letting the upgrade happen automatically as a default response to having more money. Here's the thing about the psychological experience of this. Most people who practice intentional lifestyle restraint, and there's a growing body of research and community around this, sometimes called stealth wealth or just aggressive savings, report something unexpected. They don't report feeling deprived. They report feeling calmer. Because the financial anxiety that most people carry isn't caused by not having enough things. It's caused by not having enough margin. And margin, the gap between what comes in and what goes out, is what actually creates the sensation of safety. The APA's research on financial stress in America has consistently found that the subjective sense of financial security is much more correlated with savings cushion and control than with income level. A person making $55,000 with 6 months of expenses saved often reports less financial stress than a person making $90,000 with no savings buffer and a high fixed cost lifestyle. The income is almost beside the point. What the brain is tracking is resilience. Can you absorb a shock? Can you handle a medical bill, a layoff, a car repair, without going into crisis mode? That answer, the honest answer for most Americans, is often no, regardless of what their salary looks like on paper. The Federal Reserve's own report on the economic well-being of U.S. households found that roughly 37% of Americans would struggle to cover an unexpected $400 expense. Not $4,000, $400. And the people in that statistic are not all low earners. A significant portion have incomes that would surprise you. That's the golden cage the opening of this video was talking about. It looks like success from the outside. Nice car, nice apartment, good job. But it's a cage because every month is fully committed. There is no slack. There is no choice. The lifestyle costs exactly what it costs, and the next paycheck is already spoken for before it arrives. That is not financial security. That is a very well-decorated version of financial fragility. So what does the actual alternative look like in practical terms? The first move is what some behavioral economists call a savings escalation commitment. When a raise comes in, you decide, in advance, before you see the money hit your account, that a specific percentage of the increase is going to savings or investments before your lifestyle even registers the change. Researcher Shlomo Benartzi, who helped design the Save More Tomorrow program used by many U.S. employers, found that pre-committing to future savings increases dramatically outperforms willpower-based saving because you're making the decision before the money feels real. You're not fighting the hedonic treadmill. You're just stepping off before it starts moving. The second move is a cost audit on fixed expenses. Not a budget, a cost audit. The difference matters psychologically. A budget feels like restriction. A cost audit is just an accounting. What are the monthly fixed costs that exist right now? What did each one cost 3 years ago? What triggered each increase? Was it necessity or was it default lifestyle expansion? This isn't about guilt. It's about visibility. Most people have never actually sat with those numbers clearly in front of them. And when you do, you often find expenses that you don't even particularly value, that crept in during periods of relative abundance and just stayed. The third move, and this is maybe the most psychologically important one, is to deliberately reframe what the car, the apartment, or the neighborhood represents. For most Americans, lifestyle items carry identity weight. The car you drive signals something. The zip code you live in signals something. And that signaling function is real. It affects how others perceive you and, over time, how you perceive yourself. The no-upgrade framework asks you to consciously detach a portion of your identity from those signals and reattach it somewhere else. To your net worth number, to your savings rate, to the number of months of expenses you have in reserve, to the slowly expanding gap between what you earn and what you need. That gap, invisible to everyone around you, is the actual measure of financial power. And redirecting your identity toward it changes everything about how financial decisions feel. None of this is easy. Let's be honest about that. Living in a culture that monetizes aspiration, where every advertisement, every social media platform, every peer interaction is calibrated to make you feel slightly insufficient until you buy the next thing, is genuinely hard to push against. The pressure is real. The social cost of being the person who doesn't upgrade, who drives the same car for 10 years, who stays in the modest apartment while earning a salary that could support something fancier, that cost is real too. People notice. Sometimes people comment. Sometimes you feel it yourself. But here's what 10 years of that discomfort actually buys you. It buys you the ability to leave a job you hate without financial terror. It buys you the ability to take a risk on something you actually want to build. It buys you the ability to handle a health crisis, a family emergency, a period of unemployment without going into debt. It buys you options. And options, the ability to say yes or no based on what you actually want, not what your account balance forces you to do. That is what financial security actually feels like from the inside. Not the car, not the apartment, the options. The people who genuinely feel financially free in the United States are rarely the ones with the highest incomes. They're the ones with the highest gap. The ones who, at some point, made a quiet, stubborn decision to stop letting their lifestyle automatically expand to fill every available dollar, and started treating every extra dollar as a vote for future freedom instead. 10 years from now, you will be somewhere. The question is just whether the choices you make between now and then were made deliberately or by default. The no upgrade roadmap is not really about not upgrading. It's about upgrading the thing that actually matters, which is your margin, your resilience, and your ability to live on your own terms. That's a much better car to be driving.